It's time for the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan. Blake Sloan, one of the top real estate agents not only on the Grand Strand, but in the world. He's been featured in Forbes magazine, The Wall Street Journal, NBC, and many other publications. And now, the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan.
Welcome to Blake Sloan Real Estate Show. Brand new show this week. Awesome stuff and all kind of news to talk about. This week, big news, really. The brand new market numbers are in, and they're very, very interesting. Significant declines in terms of sales year over year. Prices also dropped in median and average sale price month versus month. So we'll talk about what's going on with there, but there's a little bit of hope. We saw some numbers bump back up in terms of pending deals. We'll talk about that. But we also had huge news this week with interest rates. They jumped back up above 6% significantly back down on Friday. So we'll talk about what's happened there. It may slow down buyers a little bit. We'll talk about kind of what's going on in terms of that. One thing that's kind of been some national news is the term sell my house is up 144% as we've seen kind of this change a little bit. So we'll talk about what's going on with that. And we'll also talk about something we had on last week's show schedule that didn't have time to get to was the impact of institutional buyers just across the country. Even in South Carolina, we're seeing a lot of large companies that are buying here. And that's really impacted the market across the country. And so most so in Texas, we'll talk about what's happening there, how we compare. One thing we mentioned on last week's show, just didn't have a chance to really get to. Our team had a record year last year, still growing like crazy. We have a real estate scholarship opportunity where we have a real estate school, and you can get licensed to that. And we're paying for your tuition. If you're interested in getting real estate and joining our team, reach out to me. I'll talk a little bit about that at the end on the show as well. As usual, some amazing success stories, and one of those could have been a horror story. Thankfully, I referred to somebody from this show, referred them. They had investors offer them $100,000 less than what we were able to get them for their property. And so if they would have made that mistake, made big $100,000 mistakes, we'll talk about that. All kind of different stuff we'll talk about. We'll just talk about data, what's happening. And as usual, we just show every week, doing it for over 10 years. If you want to know anything else, reach out, call us. Everything here is also on podcast. Just search Blake Sloan on your favorite podcast system, Apple, Google, whatever it is. Also, we stream it to YouTube, Facebook. Give us a follow on there. More than happy to go back and watch these and check them out as well.
All right, a lot of stuff to get to. If you're just tuning in for the very first time and you're not sure who you're listening to or what you're listening to, it's the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show, hosted by, of course, Blake Sloan. Blake Sloan has been called the real estate whiz kid. He's been featured in Forbes magazine, Wall Street Journal, Realtor magazine, other national publications. You may be seeing him on TV with NBC and also with Fox and Friends with the Morning Show. You've heard the personal endorsements here by Glenn Beck, by Sean Hannity, also Barbara Corcoran, Gary LaVox. Put them all together, it's just totally unprecedented. Now, that's one thing. But the other thing is that Blake has trademark systems for both home sellers and home buyers. They are trademarked, so we can't give you all the details, but more than happy every week to tell you the most important part of that system.
Yes, and that's the whole reason we do the show. That's the whole DNA behind this show. Like I mentioned a second ago, over 10-plus years doing this show. And really, I just have one goal, to help educate people on real estate and help you make better decisions, right? Help you make better decisions for what for most people is one of their largest assets. And so really that's kind of the most important thing. But what I noticed is everyone tends to make the same mistake over and over and over and over again. It doesn't matter how affluent they are, how many properties they bought and sold. They still make this huge mistake of thinking that all real estate agents are the same, and it could not be any further from the truth, right? And the reality is the average agent in our marketplace sells about 4 homes a year, which is not a whole lot. And so it's the same thing that with a doctor or a lawyer, right? If you're charged with a crime you did not commit, the last thing you want is some part-time attorney who's done a few cases or really done 4 cases, right? You want the absolute best, most aggressive person who specializes in that type of law to help give you the best competitive advantage you can possibly get. And you should demand that same level of excellence when you're talking about your real estate or buying or selling, or really your home. Really, for most people, like I mentioned, their largest asset that they own or one of the largest assets they own. So here's the deal. The single most important variable that determines your failure or success as a home seller comes down to one thing only. And I made a promise to say this every show because I say it every show, and I still hear people that listen to the show and make these mistakes. So that's why I share it. And the reason is it comes down to the agent you choose. It has to do with how they actually execute, because most people don't realize it's a lot more than just putting some photos in MLS. And that's what most agents do. Most agents just really do the 3 Ps. We say this all the time. They promise you the world to get a listing. Number 2, they put it into MLS. And 3, they just pray that someone else brings a buyer. And meanwhile, they're on the street getting the next listing. Now, many people do still operate that way, but that's not really the best way to give you the competitive advantage. So what we really found out and broke down is there's 118 different variables from A to Z when you're getting your property sold. So if each one of those is handled correctly, guess what it does? puts money in your pocket, property gets sold. Anything's handled incorrectly, aka they drop the ball at any point, guess what it does? Costs you your hard-earned equity. And so that's one thing where you want to make sure that they're obviously able to be handled correctly. And so we call it stacking the dominoes. We have two things in place, both people and processes, aka technology and systems and all these things, to make sure that we stack these dominoes up to knock the right ones over in the right order. And if you add those up over time, it creates small little gaps that added up over 118 create a massive competitive advantage for you as a home seller. Small things like price strategy, the quality of the marketing. You notice most marketing is absolutely terrible. It's one of those things that you kind of just see where a lot of people are just using their cell phone or taking photos. They don't understand the buyer psychology. You don't realize their first showing happens online. So the quality of photos matter. The order of the photos matter. Does your agent actually answer the telephone when a buyer calls off of that for sale sign or the internet lead? How long does it take them to respond to web leads or submissions? Do they even respond back to them? All these things come into play, including negotiation of purchase price, negotiation of home inspection. All these things really add up to make or break the home sale. And the last thing you want, some novice who just doesn't have time to juggle all the balls, that's doing those things for you just by default. And so what we did is say, look, how do I take those 118 variables and create a system that's proven repeatable, that creates maximum leverage at every single point? And that's exactly what we did. That system's called the Guaranteed Sold System. The only proven system sells twice as fast and for up to 20% more money than traditional methods, and it works very, very, very well. On the flip side, guess what? Same exact thing there. 100 plus variables for home buyers out there. A lot of times people found out recently when the market's been hot and inventory's been low, it's very difficult. And who you use as an agent matters, right? Everyone's not the same. Just like any business or anything, right? You want to make sure you have the absolute best. And so for buyers out there, with this thing called the Unfair Advantage Home Buying System, get you priority access to all the foreclosures, distress sales, desperate sellers, the absolute best negotiation and purchase price, as well as home inspection to get you that closing table successfully. And what we do differently is we have a team of specialists, right? We have a team model that's all within a brokerage. And so instead of being one single agent, how most agents operate, they operate as a generalist. And what a generalist is they're trying to do everything. So they're trying to work with buyers out there, trying to work with sellers, they're trying to do the marketing, they're trying to do their administrative work. That's why you don't ever call you back, right? Because they're too busy trying to do those things. They're also trying to do their contract to close once it goes under contract. So in essence, what you end up having is a bunch of agents all having their own little McDonald's, and they're trying to do the front register, the drive-thru, and the french fries at the same time. It's very inefficient. That's why they don't call you back, and that's why you're frustrated the last time you sold your house. And so the difference here is you want to have a team of specialists where each person specializes in what they do. We have buyer experts, we have seller experts, we have an inside sales team, an outside sales team, specific administration team, that everyone has different roles and responsibilities, including our own videographer, photographer, all those things where I want to have a team of specialists where I can control the outcome so that we give our client a massive competitive advantage. And so you owe it to yourself to at least hear about those and learn about those, because it always comes down to the agent you choose matters. And so we'll talk about more about that, but that's the main reason why we do this show, and we'll get back into that in the $100,000 example we talked about earlier right after this next break.
Hey, Sean Hannity here with my trusted friend in the real estate market, Blake Sloan of Sloan Realty Group. If I were listing a home today, what advice would you give me?
The advice that I give you today was you have to find an agent with a proven marketing plan that can get you the exposure you need to get top dollar and record numbers in today's marketplace. Most agents just put an MLS and hope someone else brings a buyer. Meanwhile, you need somebody who spends money and gets the traction and traffic that you deserve.
Now, how would that impact my bottom line? That's what matters.
That massively impacts your bottom line because it brings more traffic, it brings more buyers, it creates bidding wars, but more importantly, it brings in the traction of buyers from out of town who see our value and are willing to come in and pay more money and top dollar for your property here along the Grand Strand.
All right, as always, thanks for the insight. Call Blake Sloan today at 808-SOLD. That's 808-SOLD. Or online at blakesloan.com. That's blakesloan.com.
Hi, I'm Barbara Corcoran. I'm excited to connect with Blake Sloan, the only real estate agent in Myrtle Beach that I recommend. You offer several options to home sales, which really takes away the stress.
That's right. For sellers in a time crunch, we can agree to sell it by a certain date, pay cash for your home, or even rent it.
That's great. And if the seller has a bit more time?
We use our proven marketing plan to sell it for the highest price.
Work with my friend Blake Sloan and get your home sold on your terms.
Welcome back to the Blake Sloan Real Estate Show. Real quick, big shout out to Tom Brophy and his wife, Kathy. They came to us yesterday to list and sell their home in Del Webb and Grand Dunes. And really cool about Tom, big listener to the show. I've been listening for a while and referred us two of his neighbors in his neighborhood. And guess what? We got their property sold fast for top dollar as well. One of those we were able to sell, and they leased it back until they had their next one. So very, very excited to get their house on the market here soon, the first of next month. They're finishing up a few things and have that thing ready to roll. So if you're looking for something in Del Webb, reach out to me. We'll have that ready. So looking at MLS numbers, right? They're very interesting. We have their brand new numbers right out the press. They'll probably adjust a little bit because we use real-time data. Sometimes the agents don't put their sales in from last month quite yet, but by now most of that data is in. There's two types we'll talk about, right? We talk about rear-view mirror data. I mention this all the time, but those are properties that closed last month. You have to remember, though, they went into contract 30 to 60 days prior, ideally probably 40 to 45 to 30 days prior to that. So it's interesting because we saw a decline overall from last year. I'll hit those really quick. So last month, which is obviously August, we looked at 16.3% decline from the same time last year. And so if you look at last year in August, there were 663 properties sold. This August, 555. So you're seeing that trend continue as rates went down. Rates went up from last year. Starting in March, they've climbed up obviously significantly, but 16.3% decline in sales. It is a good news, though. We did see a bump up from July, where typically July is one of our busiest months, but we really peaked out this year in March. That's when rates started going up at 702. And then in June, it was 660. July down to 509. And then bumped back up in August, which is good news, to 555. And so we've seen it kind of bouncing around a little bit. Remember, rates went up to, I think, 6.27, and then dropped back down a little bit, and we saw more buyers jump off the fence a little bit once we saw that kind of happen. But unfortunately, last week it just bumped back up again. So we'll talk about that overall. Sales price, interesting too. So median sales price is up 7.7% from last year at $350,000. But the real news is it's down from the last month, from July significantly. So July was at $370. In August, the overall median price was $350. It peaked out this year at $380 in May. So May was a peak. If you look at prices for median price at $380,000, then it dropped down overall the next month after that, which obviously is June, $370, stayed $370 in July, and it dropped back again another $20,000 down to $350. And so if you go back to our previous shows, like I said, on Facebook or YouTube, whatever, we talked about this, what happened, because price is always a lagging indicator. We saw about a 25% drop in terms of buyers, and so that obviously led to prices softening a little bit. And some of that, though, is really more normalization because we just saw some crazy numbers out there that just weren't sustainable. But overall, into average sale price, we're seeing the same thing. It's up year over year, which is good. If you compare the month of August versus August, it's up 6.5%. But if you look at month versus month, it's down. So if you look at July, it's 451, 576, and in August, 436, 108. And so it peaked out this year in April at 486,000. Right now, we're down to 436. So you can see that trend, tapering off. Just month versus month here. And again, that has to do with as rates have gone up, just affordability is not there for some of the buyers. And so you can see an area like Myrtle Beach peak out just because there's not a whole lot of industry. A lot of the people buying are coming from out of town. And so that's just something to keep in mind. As we see that, doesn't mean that the sky is falling, but it does mean it's normalizing overall for sure. One of the interesting data points, which I like to look at, is showings per listing, which is really what's happening in terms of how many buyers are actually looking at properties, and it's down 19.4% from the same time last year. So the good news is it bumped a little bit up from July into August. Again, that's when we saw rates go back down. There's a period there in July where we saw it where they were still getting loans in the high fours, which is good in terms of percentage of interest rate. But then right now we're stuck at 5.8, where if you look just last year, let's say March of last year is 8.1 showings per listing. So significant decline there. Overall supply stayed flat, which is actually good. It's up 33% from the same time last year. It was up about 45%, but over the last month, we've seen that kind of stay flat. So, for example, right now there's 2.0 months inventory. That does not mean that it's a buyer's market. We're still technically in a seller's market. Anything less than 6 months inventory means the seller has the advantage there. It just did bump up from 0.9 months up to 2.0 months, which I think is healthy, right? So the last time we were at 2 months of inventory was all the way back in December 2020. So that's just something to kind of see. If you go back to, let's just say, April 2020, there was 4.7 months inventory. So there's still double that, and that was still a normal market. So it is more normalizing in terms of what's going on there overall, which is good. You look into overall condos. I think that's something that you kind of see a change there pretty significantly. They're down 25.3% from the same time last year. 522 condos sold last month. It did bump up from 514, though, in July. But if you look at the peak of this year, it peaked out in March at 804 condo sales in 1 month. Last month at 522. So significant decline there overall you're seeing in a median price. The good news is price is still up from last year, up 33.6%. We finally saw a drop month versus month. So we were hanging right around the 240 range as a peak. So it peaked out this year at May at 240, June 238, and then 239.5 in July. Then it dropped down to 227. So you can see, right, about a $10,000 drop there overall, and you're finally starting to see that track down a little bit for median price. Average sale price tends to react quicker. May, it peaked out at 276,805. Right now, we're at 261,315 for those. And so the same type thing you're seeing there. Supply's up significantly. It's up 58.3%. A lot more condos in the market. And again, that just goes, many people are selling. They're kind of seeing it scrape the top. And people are taking advantage of that, trying to cash out at the top, which is a very smart move for a lot of people there as well. Showings per listing down 23% as well. So you're seeing about a 20 to 25% decline in buyers from the same time last year, just in who's looking at property, which obviously is forcing many people to go to rent or just not buy second homes based on what's happening. Here's some interesting data, though, that we track every week. We've been doing this for a while. We share every week on the show how many properties under contract in a 7-day period, how many are active on the market, and kind of what's going on. We had a huge week this last week in terms of actual properties going under contract. We had 606 properties under contract for $228,638,000. So that's big time. Remember we talked a few months ago that anything over $200 million in a 7-day period is huge. It's great news for us. That means the market's rocking and rolling. Last week's show, we only did $205 million, so 23 more million under contract just in this 7-day period from last week's show. And last week's show was only 592 when under contract. So that's great news there. Inventory dropped a little bit from this week right now, as of today, 834 active. Last week's show was 844 active. So you saw buyers scooped up a lot of property. Check this out. 15 properties over $1 million went under contract in the last 7 days, where last week's show was only 7. And 96 properties over $500,000 under contract, where last week's show was only 80. So a lot of big money pumped in. We saw a $5.7 million house that wasn't even on the water or anything going to contract this past week, which is awesome. So one thing we're talking about our team, remember me talking about this on previous shows, a lot of big money flowing into the old Grand Strand in this fall season. A lot of different buyers come. We see the buyer kind of change, where it's less families, people are coming in the summertime, vacationing along with buying something. Now we see people in the shoulder season coming. It's just a different type of buyer. We're seeing a lot of cash buyers come in. So if you're thinking about selling something high end, definitely think about this fall season. Reach out to me. It's a great time to kind of tee that up. The wild card information, though, this past week comes down to interest rates. Interest rates were all the way up to 6.22 this past week on Friday. It dropped back down to 6.02, though, which is awesome. So really a quarter-point increase really over a day, which happened between Thursday and Friday. So back over the 6%. That obviously hurt some buyers' ability to buy. Last week's show, for example, was 5.73. So we'll see what happens as it keeps going up over and over. We're going to see what happens. Right now, a 15-year fixed rate, 5.29%. A 30-year jumbo loan, 5.12. A 5-year adjust rate mortgage right now, 6.0%. A 30-year FHA loan, 5.32%. And a 30-year VA right now, 5.3%. So still pretty affordable. I will see a few buyers pump brakes. If you're thinking about selling, do not wait till November, December, right? Take advantage right now while rates are still decent. There's still buyers who have been wanting to buy who couldn't find inventory. There's still a struggle for inventory. We're only 2.0 months inventory. And so reach out, call me, check out your options, 843-808-SOLD or BlakeSloan.com anytime. Be right back in a second.
WRNN listeners, Clay Travis here. As investors in real estate, Buck and I both know exactly what to look for to find the agent with the best tools and marketing to get the highest sales price possible for a home.
Totally true, Clay. And here in Myrtle Beach, that agent is our friend Blake Sloan of Sloan Realty Group. If you need to sell a home and buy a new one, ask Blake about his guarantee.
Get this, Blake guarantees to sell your home at a price and deadline you agree to, or he'll buy it himself. And since you know when your current home will sell by and for how much, you can buy your next home without worrying about getting stuck with 2 mortgages.
There's simply no other agent in the market who has a guarantee that will line up against what Blake Sloan can offer you. So when you're looking to sell and buy, he is your guy. Read nearly 750 5-star reviews by Googling Sloan Realty Group. Give Blake a call today and start packing. That's Sloan Realty Group.
And tune in to Blake's show Saturdays at 9 a.m. and Sundays at 11:30 a.m.
Welcome back to Blake's Loan Real Estate Show. Hot buyers alert. My team and I are working with a ridiculous amount of home buyers who are looking to buy homes in the Myrtle Beach, Grand Strand area from $250,000 to $4.3 million. If you're thinking about selling, contact us immediately, 843-808-SOLD. That's 843-808-SOLD. One thing we've been doing for a long time here is just putting our money where our mouth is, where I mentioned earlier, we have a team of specialists, and so part of that team of specialists, we have about almost 30 agents that were able to drive massive traffic. So we spend tens and tens of thousands of dollars every month driving traffic online, and it generates buyers from all across the globe, specifically a lot of buyers from Northeast. That's something I've been doing since 2006. My coworkers used to make fun of me, calling me the internet kid. Guess what? We found out something very early on that really came true, right? We started geo-targeting buyers based on the Northeast and based on their IP address, which allowed us to really bring in lots of buyers who have high-end, capital, are selling properties up there. They're primary, let's say for $600,000-$700,000, buying something here for $300,000 or $400,000, and to them it's a great deal. And so we have buyers from all over right now. I got Ann Harrison on the site from Beverly, New Jersey. She made her 20 visits. She's got 12 properties she's looked at just in the last couple of days. I got Irv from Myrtle Beach. I got Debbie from Conway. I got Tanya from Anderson, South Carolina. Maureen from Oxford, Massachusetts. I got Lawrence from Manahawkin, New Jersey. I got Thomas from Voorheesville, New York. I got Ed from Philadelphia, PA. I got Michelle from Bedminster, New Jersey. I got Sandy from San Francisco, California. And I share that just so you can see we have buyers. And we got right here, Stuart from Montreal, Quebec. So there's all kind of opportunities. So what makes us different when I talk about that, we outspend the average agent 100 to 1 from a marketing standpoint. And our ability to do that comes from our advantage of our business model. So we're able to really outspend them, drive massive traffic, and then our team serves them at a very, very high level. And everyone asks that question, what makes you different? Well, me versus your friend or whoever it is that's, going to put a for sale sign in the front yard and then start marketing. I've been spending tens of thousands of dollars every month getting buyers before you ever call them. And I sat with Tom and Kathy yesterday. I showed them how our system works and how it takes any new property, just like theirs, and reverse engineers the most likely buyers for the property, and it scores them on a scale of 1 to 10 who the most likely buyer for their property is, and then I can reach out and call them, and our sales team reaches out and call them, and that's what we do. We're not just agents who sit on the tails or sit on our heels and wait for something to happen. We get the listing, put it in there, use the technology we have to reverse engineer the most likely buyers, and we call them and match up buyer and seller because that's what we're hired to do, not just take some photos and put it to MLS and hope that it sells. And that could get away with when the market was super hot and in a frenzy. As the frenzy has died down, guess what? You can't get away with that anymore. And so if you want to know more how that works and really see that, it absolutely blow your mind. It really blew their mind yesterday to see that in person and kind of how that works. So if you want to know more how that works, reach out, 843-808-SOLD. We're still in an inventory shortage. And like I mentioned, right, we have right now 69,216 active home buyers. Again, 69,216 active home buyers that are on our site, username, password, account, who are searching, that we're able to match up to your property, and that hopefully already have them looking before you ever call us. So if you have a friend or relative thinking about buying or selling, have them reach out to us too. That really means the most, and that's something that's super important. 2 quick success stories. The first one, Tanya and Billy owned a house in Myrtle Beach. Recently made the decision to move out further in the country to get a little more space. Their biggest concern, though, is they needed to sell their home to get the most equity, right? And they needed to do a little work to it, they thought, before getting it sold. Thankfully, referred to us by an amazing radio listener. We met with Tanya and Billy, shared exactly how if they finish a few little things around the house, we get them an extra $20,000 if they wanted to. They took our advice. We designed a custom plan, launched our Gold Marketing Blitz, professional photos, the virtual reality walkthrough. Within just a couple of days of massive traffic, received multiple offers, even in this slower market, right? Created multiple offers, which creates a bidding war, right? They accepted an offer $10,000 more than their asking price, not contingent upon any inspections, and now they can move on, take their hard-earned equity into their new house further out in the country, which is awesome. Here's another one really quick. This is one I'm most proud of here, and this happens over and over and over. Do not fall victim to these investors that want to pretty much just steal your equity. You hear a lot of advertising on the radio. They're just going to buy your house, make it quick and convenient. That's because they just steal your equity, right? So here's an example. $100,000 extra dollars. Corey and Megan owned a house in Little River. Corey moved to Florida for a new job. They need to sell their house quickly so that Megan can move to Florida to be their husband. The only worry was they need to be able to sell the house in its current condition and a price that they need a top dollar to get what they need down there. They spoke with few investors who all offered them $100,000 under what they actually owed on the home. They obviously didn't think it was possible to sell their house because it needed some renovations. Thankfully, they referred to us here at Sloan Realty Group. We share with them how we have hundreds of buyers looking for homes just like theirs who are willing to pay top dollar. We designed a custom plan, launched a global marketing blitz, professional photos. Within a few days, received 4 offers in their home. Corey and Megan were able to accept an offer that was as is, a.k.a. the current condition, and for $100,000 above what the investor had offered them. And now they can move to Florida and put maximum equity in their pocket. And so that's a big, big deal there, right? Make sure that you understand that, hey, look, these people a lot of times are not licensed. They're not there to look out for your best interests. And so reach out to us, call us. We're licensed. And that's one of the things that here's a big difference you don't realize. So an owner-occupant will pay much more money for your house because they're going to be the end user, right? A lot of the investors are just trying to take this and flip it. They add a little bit of money and get some. We do that a lot of times too, but we pay more what we call a fair price if it's just turnkey. We just want to be able to help you get out of that. That's an option we offer. We have a big fund of millions of dollars that we can do that, but a lot of these investors are just trying to make a huge hack or huge chunk off of your equity, and it's not fair, right? But a lot of times I think some of the fear is that I don't want people tracking through my house. The biggest one we get is that people think that they need to do all this work to the house, but you don't. We can advise you on a few things. I call it gingerbreading if you want to, but most of the time we sell it as is. And what I find is most of the home sellers are much more critical of their house than we are or than anyone else is, and we can usually sell it 9 times out of 10 in an as-is condition and get you top dollar for the house. And so usually done with just a few people and a few showings. And so if you want to be in that scenario, or if you're just curious about it, reach out to us. We're not here to pressure you. I'm here to serve you. Like we said, I've been doing this show for 10-plus years, and my goal is to give you the information you need, help you make good decisions, and I know at the right time when it does come, you'll reach out to us to help you buy or sell in that scenario. So 843-808-SOLD, BlakeSloan.com. We have 2 minutes left. Awesome. Okay. One thing I want to talk about that's very, very interesting right now is Google searches up like crazy. So here's an overall article. Surprise. Google searches for sell my house explode. And it talks about industry data. Google search revealed that the searches for, quote, sell my house exploded 147% in the United States as of July 2022, the highest level in internet history for America. Which is pretty interesting, right? And so this comes as obviously many Americans are facing property and rent cost increases, fears of recession, and I just talked about that search more than doubled month versus month. And so if you're thinking about that, make sure that you're doing more than just like going to the regular Google and who pays more or whatever it is. If you check us out, we have almost 780-plus reviews, more than anyone else on there. But more importantly, make sure you have a true expert who's very, very good at what they did. The top states searching for their seller houses: Mississippi, Connecticut, Virginia, Wyoming, Florida, Iowa, New Mexico, North Carolina, New York, and Kentucky, which is an interesting combo there. But here's the deal. Don't just go to some sell my house search. Don't put your fate into that. Don't let your friends put their fate in that. Say, look, you got to call my buddy Blake Sloan at 843-808-SOLD. Go ahead and save me in your phone as, again, 843-808-SOLD, or just Google Blake Sloan Real Estate. You'll see tons of our reviews. You can watch our videos on YouTube. We have hundreds and hundreds of clients who give their great, great experience. And so we want to help serve you and want to serve your friends. Reach out, call me, 843-808-SOLD. We'll see you here next week at the same time.
Hey, Myrtle Beach, it's Gary LaVox, lead singer of Rascal Flatts.
I'm moving on.
When I'm Moving On won the award for ACM Song of the Year, it struck a chord with folks who understand the challenges that come with life's big changes. For many, that happens when it comes time to sell their home. If you're moving on, you want a real estate agent who will make selling your home easy and stress-free. An agent who's willing to let you out of the contract if you're not happy with their service. That's why in Myrtle Beach, I can tell you that Blake Sloan of Sloan Realty Group markets your home on a whole different level. Now listen, Blake is so confident in his ability to sell your home quickly and for more money that he guarantees to sell it or he'll buy it himself. If you're moving on, trust Blake. 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 If you're moving on,